Western civilization is moving closer to a point of irreconcilable, unstable equilibrium, as frighteningly increasing numbers of people trust nothing. Media, academia, and especially the governments are no longer held in high esteem. Regaining trust is often impossible after betrayal. However, transparency is essential to any healing process, and that is the essence of the Don Sullivan Show. Please listen to the team explore, probe, and debate cutting-edge science, technology, and computing. Play ball! Welcome back, everyone, to the Don Sullivan Show, and we're here again, believe it or not. We have survived the first 20 or so episodes, but we're here to talk about the umbrella concepts of science, technology, and computing, as we always do. And we're going to talk about it, as we always do, again, on the level that your average, intelligent, high school teenager can understand, to be able to make sure the audience is as broad as possible and gains as much information as possible. We have an incredibly interesting guest and subject today. But to start off with here, I am, as always, your host, Don Sullivan. Allow me to introduce my partner, the now renowned folk hero, Mr. Jersey Steve. Say hello, Steve.
Greetings from the Garden State, and I want to thank our sponsors today. Today's episode is brought to you by License Fortress, the industry's first and only software asset management firm to offer both a financial and a legal guarantee at its highest level of service, whether it's Oracle, Microsoft, or VMware. License Fortress helps organizations stay compliant, avoid audits, and save money. You can learn more at licensefortress.com. And also, please support our producer by visiting axtink.com, axtink.com. You can subscribe to his YouTube channel and help support his efforts to create humorous animation, as well as run our website, all while researching a cure for baldness. Back to you, Don.
Yeah, I think that might be a long way away there, Stephen. Mr. Bill is going to have to put a lot of effort into that one. But
you
today,
can let a man
folks,
dream. You can let a man dream.
So today we are recording this episode from beautiful Colorado, deep in the bowels of my basement, and we are not having this episode from any particular exotic location. But you know what? We're about to talk about the exotic locations. In fact, my basement office here is anything if not the absolute opposite of the places that we're going to talk about. Erwin Kollegger is a world-famous skier, guide, and mountain climbing icon who has an amazing history. More importantly, he has guided me around a number of remote locations all through the U.S. and pulled me out of a few rock holes that may have prevented the Don Sullivan Show from ever actually existing. This is one amazing guy, and I want to introduce Erwin Kollegger. If I got it all right, Erwin, what do you think?
You got everything perfect, Don.
All right. Well, folks, I first have to start off with, before we get into some questions, because our multitude of lawyers and the legal firms that I have talked to insist that I do this. But all statements by the host and the guests of the Don Sullivan Show are the personal opinions of the hosts and the guests, who agree that the following content is the property of Zanalytics LLC to be used publicly and exclusively on the Don Sullivan Show. And now we can move away from that nonsense. And Erwin, let's start off with asking you the question that the entire vast audience of the Don Sullivan Show wants to know to begin with. You are a world-class skier. And in the 70s, you suffered a very bad accident, which probably prevented you from actually being a lot more renowned in the world's most prominent ways. But you became a ski instructor of great renown and a climbing guide for the last 50 years. I mean, folks, this guy is pushing 75 years old. How have you avoided being killed in all these places you've been? Please explain that to us to start with.
Well, Don and Steve, thank you, for having me on the show. It's just really an honor, really, to be talking about different things. And, I'm very pleased I can do that. And obviously, I know you, Don, for a long time. And we've been friends for a while. We've done different things together. And I'm gladly contribute. I'm not the type of a guy that, I'm pretty much, a little bit of a, I, I don't talk about myself too
The
much and all that
typical
stuff.
humility of a real world-class athlete. Go on. We want to hear about you.
All right. So it all started obviously at a very, very early age. I mean, I remember statements of my mom telling me when we had get-togethers and stuff like this, she just couldn't imagine that I was that kind of a skier as a young
And where
kid.
were you born?
Well, I was born in Switzerland, in a very small and remote town, but at the same time, not too far away from one of the biggest resorts in the world, which is St. Moritz. And, was as she always told me, I think I was born on skis. Okay, she always she had no idea where that came from because my parents were not skiers at all. Okay, but here I was, and that desire and that burning to become one of the greatest skiers that I wanted to become at that time, and also taking that skiing already at an early age. And my ideas and travel the world and travel the biggest mountains and be able to ski the biggest peaks in the world was given to me as I'm not so sure, it was put in my heart at a very, very early age. And I think that drive and that whole, maybe a very selfish ambition to just go with that, just stayed with me for the longest of times, good and bad. I mean, I was on track to be, this great skier that I wanted to be, but then also my dreams sort of very quickly were reduced, in such a way that I had a very big setback around between 18 to 20 years old. So 2 years of the very most crucial development stages of my career, my young skiing career, racing career for that matter, and also a climbing. I did manage just before my accident actually to accomplish a great racing career up to that time as a junior, but then also become a ski instructor and a backcountry athlete or a backcountry guide. And that really helped me later on after my accident, which took 2 years of time to recuperate, to get into the field and stay in that field that I always dreamed of, even though I couldn't really stay on the very top on the level that I wanted to, but it got me definitely into the direction that later on became my entire world for me, Gave me that opportunity to travel in the same time as teaching in all these beautiful places I've been, right?
Yeah, like I said to the audience, if you're not paying attention, this is a truly amazing guy in the sense that I'm going to ask you a question and I'm going to embed something in here that you don't have to get into the details of because there's, even after 50 years, there's going to be PTSD, but somehow you are one of the most fit people I know. And I don't mean one of the most fit mid 70s people that I know. You are one of the most fit people I know overall, which is absolutely incredible. And over the last 50 plus years, you have been able to accomplish that despite having a broken back and lots of other things and nearly dying in this accident. And I'm obviously changing my tone a little bit from its normal glibness because this is very, very serious. And I really want the audience to be inspired and understand that the things they can do are, if they have the mental wherewithal, are literally unlimited. Have I got anything wrong there, Erwin?
No.
And tell me how you have done that.
Yeah. So I think it all started with my accident at that time. It maybe was something that needed to happen in order for me to move on. That accident wasn't just a small thing. I mean, I literally um, flew off the road on a race car type of a car that I had at that time. I was a small little racer, Mini Cooper S races in Switzerland. We have a lot of these mountain races, and that's what we did in the summer. And I came home one evening pretty late and just didn't pay that attention. I mean, I literally flew over the road and 300 yards down into a canyon. And there was, and I remember from hitting the first tree and literally bouncing that little car from tree to tree over and over, rolling down this, because I knew exactly where it was. I knew the terrain. It was my home area. And landing shortly on a plateau, on a small plateau, the car came completely to a halt. There were no wheels on there. The thing was crushed like a little sardine box. I just had no doors on it, no nothing. And it came to a halt just shortly before another deep ravine started to happen. If I would have gone down the ravine, I was over. It would have been over. But getting out of the car, and this is probably a little bit more getting into a spiritual intervention there that I had at that particular time. When I got out of the car, I couldn't feel my body. I mean, there was nothing there. I couldn't stand. I couldn't breathe. My pelvis was broken as well. My rib cage was completely busted in. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't do anything. And yet I was in the pitch dark. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And all of a sudden I had this sensation that my life wasn't the end of my life. It could not happen. It just couldn't happen. I was only 18 years old. And I literally remember that plea that I had. I'm laying next to my car, not being able to move. And I said, God, you cannot let me die. and it's somehow I put myself together. I crawled on my knees and my elbows for 2.5, 3 hours up to the road, where at 6 o'clock in the morning, the first travelers, and it was, in the late 60s, there weren't too many people traveling that particular road with cars, but they did find me just laying on the side of the road. And then I didn't wake up till I was in the hospital. Then I came to my things again in the hospital. So I don't know. That gave me such a sense of
purpose,
perseverance.
purpose, yeah.
That, I mean, it took a while for me to come back and and get back on, especially
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years, right? But it gave me that great sense of what happened to me wasn't for as a joke. It happened for a reason. It happened to strengthen my belief in whatever I was doing later on, and to learn from it. Now, great, I maybe lost out on a great career that I wanted to have, but at the same time, everything that I touched ever since, and especially perhaps the lessons to learn out of there is to have that incredible respect of danger. Okay, because afterwards I jumped off cliffs. Later on it didn't matter. I did all sorts of freestyle. Got involved in the freestyle when I came into this country. Still kept on racing.
Freestyle climbing, you mean?
Freestyle climbing as well,
yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. Went to the top of many big peaks. But I also did that with a lot of respect to danger. So, with other words, I then always calculated my risks. And I think that's how I was able to accomplish a lot of these crazy things that we did at that time, with getting further, hurt again, or, killed myself. I mean, we jumped off into couloirs that never skied before, and who knows, did we make it or not? We never really thought too much about it at that time, but it really gave me a very clear understanding that whatever I do, I have to watch out.
So, folks, if you don't know what a couloir is, which you might not in the audience, it's that tiny little ravine about 5 foot wide that basically goes down a mountain peak, which, about 1,500, 2,000 feet, straight down at about 5 foot wide, right?
Yeah. And believe it or not, that 5 foot wasn't wide enough in those days, because we had 205 centimeter long skis, right? It's not like today when you ski down a couloir on 160s or 165 centimeters. It's a total different ball game, right?
Yeah, I was on a regular mountain in the 90s with 205s when I tore my left knee to pieces. So there you go.
Those skis didn't arc as well, but anyway, Yeah, so I think some very early on that danger played with me a big, or the awareness of the danger. No matter what I did afterwards, I was always aware of that, and I think that helped me throughout the years to achieve some of the things that I then did.
So, I mean, Erwin, your
Amazing story.
it's
Thank
truly
you.
worthy. And we'll think about this later. And really, Steve, I want you to think about this too. Who should play Erwin in the Hollywood movie? Now, Erwin, you might like an older George Clooney, but I think he's a little bit taller than you. So I don't know about that, but we need to make sure that Paramount Studios sees this Don Sullivan show so that they can actually properly put together the movie around you. We got to think about who it is that would be ideal to play you. But getting back, we'll think about that as this particular episode goes along. But I really want to know the fitness aspect of this. I mean, you come out of this at 20 years old and you're still very strong, and you don't have any weight problem then, and so on. But for 50 years, you've been able to maintain this incredible level of fitness. As I said, and folks, I'm not exaggerating. This man is incredibly fit. I'm a little bit better shape now, but at times I've weighed 215 pounds, and he's pulled me out of rocks that I was stuck in. And yeah, what do you weigh? About a buck and a half there, Erwin?
Yeah,
So you pulled me out of rocks and done it in a very nice way that I didn't feel like the fool I was for getting stuck. But how have you maintained that fitness level over the last 50 years?
Well, I think just like in many different people that obviously are in the same shape and whatever that I do or whatever. But I think that consistency has to exist there of an exercise routine throughout the years I've been exercising. I mean, I'm not a crazy exercise freak at all. And to some extent, I even hate exercising, but I know I got to do it.
Except for the 10 miles a day you hike. Other than that, yeah.
Right. But that
do you lift weights? What's your routine, Erwin?
No, I actually never did. I do a little bit of gym stuff. I do stretch a lot. I do a lot of. I got into yoga a little bit for that kind of reasons. But I think it's a healthy. I'm going a little bit of the healthier diet, or I always had that desire of a healthy diet. I never was a junkie. Let's put it this way.
I've seen you eat. You eat burgers and fries just like I used to before doctors told me I was going to die.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that once in a while.
Yes, I do. Exactly, once in a while. But I also stay away from, junk foods or fast foods, that kind of stuff, the majority of the times. And I really do believe in a lot of the stress level that people maybe get into it. Why is it work or is it whatever it is? I never got into those kind of a situation where I let my body or my mind, for that matter, stress myself out. And I think that helped me over the years. Just look at things on a much calmer way than making myself mad about or stressing myself out over things that I can even change anyway, in many ways. And then I think also for me, it always was, I needed my sleep. I like to sleep, right? I like to sleep. I maybe not sleep a lot, but I like to sleep deep. And I have noticed also that I can take great little cat naps, and those little cat naps rejuvenate my body right away. And so I'm always ready.
Is that why you let me get lost up there in Vegas that one time? I'm kidding. That's all.
I am terrible at napping. I've got to up my napping skills. I am not a napper.
Yeah, I mean that's my routine. That's sort of my routine, and I think overall those few things have helped me maintain that consistency, right? I mean, you're also talking a little bit of discipline. If you're not a disciplinarian, or in sort of ways, you'll never follow those patterns, right? You gotta have a good amount of discipline in order to commit to that kind of, daily routines or goals that you have on a workout level or whatever, on a fitness level or whatever.
So, do you think it's possible for Steve is barely 29 years old here, and I'm. Do you think it's possible for Steven to actually maintain that level of even though we're both workers in the Silicon Valley ultra stress space? You think it's possible for him to maintain that? I didn't. I went and put on tons of weight and still was strong, but I was a pretty good athlete. And then I'm getting back to it because I'm not working. But what about Steven? What do you think
You
he can
think
do it?
I can become the next Erwin? I don't know about that, Don. Let's
Well, if
let's set it a little. Let's set the bar a
All
little bit
right,
lower.
just can he stay in shape till he's 60?
well, listen, it's does your heart desire to be that kind of a person, or do you want to be that kind of a person? If that is your desire, if that's put in your heart, then I think you are totally on the way to a great accomplishment to be able to do that. I
Because
mean,
I mean,
it starts in
we
your
You
see
need to
mind.
this.
want
Like,
it.
what?
You need to want it. Yeah. At the end of the day,
Well,
You
well,
need
I
to
mean, we see
want
this
it.
problem in not just Western civilization. Certainly, Switzerland is a lot better, and most of the Scandinavian countries as well. But in the United States, there was this, and it's mostly food. We know that, but or I should say, it's a big component of it is food. But there's this huge obesity problem. And even though they've changed the definition of obesity and so on to make it more easy for the pharmaceutical companies to get different drugs approved and so on, getting political, don't mean to do that on the Don Sullivan show, but clearly there's a weight problem. Clearly there's a fitness problem in the United States. What do you think is behind that? Do you think it's really mostly stress? I do.
Well, I think for me, I mean, I before stress, I would take probably the road of the mass amount of fast food that it's available to everybody to eat. I mean, the traditional days that I remember back home, we had three meals at home, and you better be on the table three times a day.
Hey,
I
hey,
mean,
hey, are you angling for a job with Bobby Kennedy right now? Just asking.
no,
All right,
I'm
but
not.
yeah, I
No,
agree.
I'm not.
I am angling for that, by the way. But go ahead.
Good, good, good. But I mean, that is we ate a lot three times a day is a lot. A good breakfast, good lunch, and a good dinner all the time. But we ate good stuff, good food, right? Prepared the right way with good nutritional uh, supplementation of the way you're cooking foods instead of just taking the easy out. And I understand a lot of things, make people go to the fast food way they go because of time management or time restrictions. They are working and most of the people now even have to work two jobs. I mean, they don't have time to sit down and get to those regimes like I had the opportunity to go through for a long time. But then again, for over 20 and 30 years that I traveled in the ski industry, in the ski world, I wasn't always in a situation to have my best meals. But what I always did was I ate little but more during the day. So a few more times, you know what I'm talking about. So instead of just having three meals, I ate maybe six smaller meals during the day. And so to keep up with that constant exercise schedule or either
Yeah,
hiking or
I'm really
climbing
learning
or whatever, that
that
that does a
consistency
lot,
in blood sugar is
you
particularly
know.
for me who's diabetic. It's so important to maintain it so you're not up and down, even though you do take cat naps. Sorry
Yeah,
to interrupt you.
You get that white carb high, and
yeah,
it spikes and then
yeah,
it leaves you and
exactly.
you're
And
down.
then you're down, right? And you're down, and you don't want to go that route. You really don't. You want to avoid as much as you possibly can exactly that. But then again, that goes back to what we're talking about. You have to have a very disciplinarian way of thinking about that kind of stuff.
So, Erwin, I'd like to revisit something that you brought up a few questions ago, a few minutes ago, and it really is about the fact that you and I don't mean to embarrass you here, but you have an extraordinary level of humility, and I've noticed that in the times you've led tours that I've been on, and the times that we've just hiked together, which are numerous at this point, not enough, but numerous. Um, even when guiding beginner hikes, I mean, there's some people that you guide that can barely walk a couple of miles or just really totally clueless. And what keeps you so grounded? Because you really are.
Yeah, well, I get a tremendous satisfaction out of seeing a person really succeed and being able to do something they perhaps
Yeah,
on their own would never
I
have
get
done.
that.
You see what I'm saying? I
I
just
absolutely do.
thrive on that satisfaction to see that person succeed. Really, that's really the essence on that. I put myself in their shoes and try to give back some of that experience that I have had gathered over the years, and that's awesome to me. That makes me feel good. It makes I think through that the person that is then coming along with me or is doing that is seeing that, and I see this in my tours every time I take a new tour. Right? I mean, they couldn't be happier that I challenged them to something that they were not comfortable of doing, and
That's
yet.
it. That's it. Just a great answer. And I honestly, I knew what the answer was going to be before I asked you this because I know you so well. And I think that's something that our audience and everyone can really take to heart in every aspect of their life, whether it's professional or personal or recreational. But let's have some fun for a moment. Let's have some fun. So I really want to know, and I think the audience is dying to know some of the things about you. So uh, what's the most challenging and dangerous thing that you've ever done? Tell
Oh boy.
other than your accident. Tell,
Boy.
tell us this.
Well, I've been in very different, in a very few, I mean, in quite a few very sketchy and
Yeah,
scary
I know.
situations in my life and stuff like this. But probably for the sake of time, I'm going to give you. But I think for the sake of time, let's just go that way. In a backcountry skiing ascent a few years ago, or not actually, yeah, quite a few years ago now, down in the Andes in Argentina, right? Um, Sort of a back call to ascend this mountain on a very late time of the day for an overnight tour. It wasn't really a great decision. And what happened was it got us stuck on top of a ridge line and just completely unable to move on forward or down or
Were you
descending or
skiing or
whatever.
climbing or both?
No, we're skiing. We were on a backcountry ski
Okay.
tour. Okay. And coming up to the ridge, we got hit with about anywhere from 80 to 100 miles an hour wind, and there was just no way for us to move. I mean, it was literally we were a small party of about 5 6 skiers. We literally laid low. We had to lay low. We had to hold on to anything that was up there, and there was nothing there. So we just completely pressed our bodies on our stomach down to the ground, and we're trying to cling on as wide as we could possibly, spread our legs and feet to just the surface of the snow, and let that wind die down. But when you're up there, and every minute you're sort of thinking in your head, give another stronger little bit of a blast of that wind can just blow you off the cliff, right? And it literally took hours. It literally took hours for that to subside.
I was in 40-mile-an-hour winds a few weeks ago and could barely stand up.
Yeah, well, like I said, we couldn't move, right? We had to completely, and it was an open ridge line too. There was not nowhere that we could even crawl into or crawl down to or up to anything. So it is a complete bare ridge line, and there we were, 2 hours waiting for that storm to go over. And I just think again back to that desire that I had there to not obviously fall off the mountain or being blown off the mountain, going back to my root thinking or to my root experience of my accident. I clung on, and that desire to be able to survive that again just took over, and
That's
you know
amazing.
How
that
many
that is.
how many people were with you?
I were only a small party of six. I took a small party of six to go overnight into a beautiful part of I think you've been to Argentina
I
and
have,
the Andes. Yeah. And there's some incredible backcountry skiing there. We did a lot of helicopter skiing in Argentina as well. But it's another thing. I always desired, even in the very early days, that I did helicopter skiing
and for those of you in the audience who don't know, that means a helicopter takes them up, drops them off, and goes away.
Yeah. But I always had the desire to go back to the mountain and do it without the help of a helicopter. You know what I'm saying? I was just tracking up to the top of the peak and be able to then see the mountain as its full grandeur. That way by your own.
So this is making that.
That's a lot of work.
This is making that movie more compelling there, Steve.
Oh, absolutely.
And Erwin, I'm going to keep embarrassing you here because the answer to this question may actually not have occurred yet, even at your point of, even at your age in this universe. Last time we talked, you were going to be attempting this year to be the oldest person to actually climb the Eiger and the Matterhorn in the same year. Is that still on?
Well, so I'm not so sure about the oldest. I think there are quite a few between 75 and 80-year people have done that.
I know 89 is the number at Kilimanjaro, by the way. I found that out the other day.
Okay. Well, there you go. So I have actually to do a few more tours this summer. Unfortunately, that's just one of those things that has happened. And so our plans to go this summer to Switzerland are probably not going to happen. I am going to do that, but I have I developed more of a 5-year plan now between 75 and 80. And what I really want to do is at 80, once I'm 80 years old, I want to climb the 7 summits, but I don't want to do it before.
7 summits. What now? What are the 7? This sounds like a bigger task.
Starting with Everest, Kilimanjaro, obviously in Africa, Elbrus in
Russia.
In Russia. So what else?
Right. Well, then you have the South Arctic, right? The Antarctica. There's a mountain down there. It's not one of the highest, but it's obviously because of the continent.
Yeah, it ain't easy to get to.
Not easy to get to it, and it's a bloody cold mountain, apparently, what I heard. Then Aconcagua is in South America, which actually I've been nearly 3/4 up to that little baby.
By the way, folks, that's 22,995 feet.
Yeah. So, but that is really something that I have a big aspiration.
The mountain once again named Mount McKinley.
McKinley is right there. Denali is right up there, and
Denali Summit, as the locals will still refer to it. Yep. I've flown over that thing, and I've known lots of people who have done Aconcagua and McKinley, and McKinley is much harder, or Denali Summit is much harder.
Yeah, but.
So this is pretty amazing.
That's really
you haven't told me that part.
I want to. Yeah. So I mean, it's you're telling me some beautiful things about what I've done and what I've done in that time frame of today being 75 years old. But I think I have another 5 years that I want to do something more to add to that chapter and train probably a little bit different again. Maybe even we were thinking of actually moving into a much higher elevation where you train all the time.
You're gonna come to Colorado with me and do all the 14ers like I've been asking you to?
Maybe. I was just there. I was just there in Copper skiing with my son the other day, and we were eyeballing these. I think it's number 8 and 9. They're one of the 14ers. I think it's called 8 and 9 and 10.
The 10-mile ridge,
right?
10-mile ridge there, yeah.
And I said, we just got to come back this summer and climb those. I mean, they just look too nice.
Colorado has 670 plus 13,000 foot peaks and 54 14ers, and believe me,
how many have you done, John? How many have you done?
I've done about 25, and I need Erwin to take me up the rest of them.
Okay, there you go. I think what's amazing is, you have this great attitude where you're not done. You've
Yeah,
done all
I
these
know.
amazing things, but it's like, no. And some people have a birthday party when they turn 80. You're going to climb 7 huge mountains. And that's
The mountains, the 7
the
summits.
mountains, the 7 big ones. So that's just fantastic.
Like I said, I have one of my great accomplishments in my life is I got to Everest Base Camp. And that's where you start going up
That's where you
Everest.
start, right? That's where you start, right?
That's amazing. It really is.
Sort of trying to wrap some of this up, Erwin. I'm really interested in obviously your incredible attitude, as Steve just pointed out, is primary in everything that you do, and I'm wondering, what do you think the most important thing for Americans, for Western civilization, to do as we're entering this arena, hopefully, of making America healthy again, I'll say, and trying to change the food structures and so on, and at least recognizing we've had other podcasts about this already, but recognizing the dire health Americans are in. What do you think is the first things that people say in their 30s, like Steve has to do to make sure that this works for them as they get older?
Yeah, again, I think it's that mindset. It's all, it's you have to have a really strong mindset of wanting to do that for the benefit of you, for the benefit of your body, or for whatever the benefits you want to call it. But for me, it works as I'm not, like I said, I'm not a fitness fanatic, but however, I exercise regularly. I do a lot of different things. I'm not just stuck in one.
Yeah, you're a
one
carpenter, right? You're a carpenter, and you still work as a carpenter.
I can if I have to. I mean, that's just what needs to be done, and that's an exercise right
Sure,
there.
that's
There's
what
a
I'm
lot
saying.
of energy spent and whatever you do there, right? Um, so it's the different things that you do, right? Every day you do maybe 1 or 2 or 3 different things. Never get stuck in one same routine. That's why I never really joined the gym, because if I go to the gym, I'm stuck in doing the same thing in that gym, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, don't take me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that, because people like to do it and they have to do it and want to do it. But I combine a lot of different sports, whatever it is, to keep me active. Okay.
It seems like you have like real world, like get out and do things, fitness and strength, versus gym rat strength, if that makes any sense at all, Don.
Yeah. And then the other thing is too, I can never stand still, right? I always am on the go. I always have to go somewhere, right? So it's very, very hard for me to stand somewhere. I mean, like I said, I love to take a nap in the sun. I love it. I love to do that. That's
That
the
is
only time
nice.
that I feel, right? But other than that, I'm always somewhere doing something, or I have to.
There is an interesting medical. This is the last kind of technical question I'll ask you. There is a medical fact that after about age 30, it becomes much more difficult to recover day in and day out. That's the primary reason for illegal or against the rules steroids in professional sports. Even baseball players who have to swing bats, they talk about having, if they're 35 years old, going 3, 4, 5 days in a row, they just soar and they get slightly off, and that's of course the rationalization during the 90s and 2000s for so many of those great players taking steroids and so on. But oh my gosh, you get to 60, and I notice that I'm in pretty good shape right now. You'll notice that when I see you, I hope. And I'm doing a lot. But man, I go 2, 3, 4 days in a row. I just hit the wall, much more so than I did. How the hell do you do this at age 70? What do you think and is it just the consistency of your whole life, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. It's probably that, and because of, obviously, again, coming back to that, I can't stay still, so I'm always
and minor injuries, just minor injuries that take 10 times as long to recover from as they did when you were 20.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but if you don't use it, you lose it, as they say.
Yeah, well, there you go. And for me,
this man keeps going.
Go and go. Yeah, for me also, if I do at least one climb, hike, whatever it is that is big a week, that is pushing me pretty, dramatically. Okay, whether it's a 12 to 15 or a 20-mile hike, or a combination of a hike and climb. That's all. But I need
glad
to
that
do
you don't
that.
exercise.
That's like hiking to New York City from here.
Yeah, it is.
It's amazing.
It's like a marathon.
20 mile.
If you ever done a room to room in the Grand Canyon, you got to do that with me.
I did. We need to do that together.
Yeah,
but that's a beautiful.
Definitely. I've never done a room tour. I need you to do that with me. Hopefully, you won't have to pull me.
For the noobs here, such as myself, what is a rim to rim?
So from the North Rim to the South Rim, it's about 24 miles, which is close to a marathon, and about 7,500 feet.
And actually, you can do it in a beautiful way, where you go down to the Colorado River, you stay overnight, you go to the North Rim the next day, come back, stay over one more night, and then you hike back.
Oh yeah, that's 50 miles in 2 days.
Then you have a beautiful
50 miles in 2 days. Now, can you bring like little
power bars?
They have scooters,
no wheels allowed.
No wheels allowed. Oh my goodness. Okay, all right.
So,
I can see maybe.
But to sort of come back to that question, maybe just to give you a little bit, what I like to do after such a big endeavor, I just take the next day completely off, so to speak, right? So I don't do nothing the next day.
Have a good meal,
after
a hike of that sort. Do you maybe hit up the McDonald's or have a good meal at home?
No. Especially not after a big one like that. No,
Steven, you are so exhausted. You don't even want to.
You can't even eat.
You don't even want to.
It's not much. It's not the exhaustion, but I can feel it now, so I'm taking it even more easier. I don't need a whole lot the next day, and I just completely lay low. I recuperate that day. But what I do now is the following day I go right back into a quick routine, or right back on it. Because if I don't do that, your muscles are gonna be sore, or are trying to get sore, after a couple of days, and you don't want to let that happen.
Yeah, you got to move them around, get that lactic acid out. Yeah,
right, exactly.
All right,
so you gotta jump right back in.
So, Erwin, I have some tasks here. I have to contact the Guinness Book of World Records to see if you're going to be the oldest person to do the Eiger and the Matterhorn. I have to contact George Clooney to see when they're going to actually get the movie started. And
what
then
about Brad Pitt?
Yeah, and then that maybe, Brad Pitt would work. And then we have to, we're going to definitely reschedule you after the Eiger and the Matterhorn, and then we are going to have multiple events or episodes during your 7 Summits efforts during that period of time to
what
really
I was going to
publicize
suggest
that
is, Erwin, if you don't mind bringing Don with you, I can hang out at the bottom of the mountain. I'll have snacks. I know you said you don't like to eat a lot, but I'll have snacks and drinks for when you're done. So you can. And Don, we'll podcast from the. I'll have the computer set up, and Don will bring some equipment up to the top.
I'm doing these. I'm going to do one, Erwin, from the top of Kilimanjaro in February when I do that.
There you go. Yes, and I know you told me that you were going to go there, and I wish I could come with you. Believe it.
We need to bring a pizza
from the top.
Yeah, we need to bring a pizza oven and some good dough, some nice sauce.
Helicopters don't make it up there, Stephen. Helicopters can't go that high.
I know you get the guys that carry your stuff. There'll be a pizza oven that they carry.
That's true.
Mozzarella cheese, some dough. This way, when you're done, we can have some nice Jersey pizza at the base camp.
All right, folks. Hey, Erwin, this has been an unbelievable.
That's some real good Gruyere.
Yeah.
Swiss Gruyere is
there you go. We could make what is it? So we could have fondue as well. I like that idea. I like the idea of climbing mountains. The one thing I don't like is whenever I watch people climbing them, you guys don't eat very interesting food. I think if we elevate the cuisine, I'll come along to make sure that
Steven,
happens.
once you get over 16,000 feet, it's really hard to eat at all. It just,
I
it's
know,
like,
but you're not bringing the right stuff.
it's
I
like
don't
what
see
happens when you
lobster
take
up there.
GLP-1s, your body just shuts down and it doesn't want to eat at all.
Yeah, exactly.
It might be open to some Chateaubriand, though. You don't know that because you're just bringing the power bars and those MRA rations. And
I've
stuff.
had a lot of really good meals in Kathmandu afterwards, but not during it. They feed your vats of spaghetti and you eat 2 bites and that's it.
I think what you need is guys with the silver platters as you're going up it. You can get some appetizers off of them, but we'll make it healthy. Maha, we'll make healthy appetizers.
Steve, you remind me on my wife when I took her the first time camping. She didn't really want to go. She wanted to have nothing to do with camping and all that kind of stuff. Eating out in the woods and in the bit, no, that's not for me. No. But she did took a filet mignon or a couple of filet mignon so that we had good meat to cook for the campsite.
That is perfect.
Yeah. That would be on my rider for the trip.
That is exactly on Jersey Steve's menu.
There you go.
We can flush out the details later. I'm just raising these issues now.
All right. We got to bring this to a close here. And Erwin, you are, as always, thoroughly a pleasure to talk with. You're an inspirational figure to me as I get into the fourth quarter and potentially overtimes of my life. And as I am trying to endeavor to get into the shadow of some of the things that you've done with mountains and so on. Again, we're going to have you back on as much as you're willing to join us. And I hope you come to Colorado this summer and we can do some of those 14ers because I do know pretty well. So, Steve?
Well, I do have a couple of weeks in August that we maybe potentially could work something out.
We'll make it happen. Yeah, we'll make it happen. Just let me know as soon as possible. I'm going to be in Alaska, and we're going to be doing Don Sullivan shows from Alaska and Lake Clark. But once we get to the middle of August, I'll be back home. Let me know. I'm actually planning a trip to Germany to climb in the Alps with Oleg from the networking show, Steve.
Nice.
So,
very nice.
But yeah, let me know, Erwin, and we will do it. And you can stay in my house. And I got this big basement office here, and I got other stuff upstairs. It's not just a bomb shelter. All right. So, thank you everybody for listening. Erwin, thank you. I miss anything? Anything else you want to add into this?
I think we covered. We covered a good amount of.
I think so too. The whole world, as a matter of fact. All right. Thank you so much, Erwin. You're an inspiration to me, and I hope the vast audience of the Don Sullivan Show. Steve, you want to say goodbye there, and I'll close it out?
Absolutely. Thank you, Erwin, and thank you, everyone, for listening.
And to remind the audience and thank you for everyone for listening. And please tune in again, download all the shows. And remember, folks, all at-bats are situational.